I'm Caesar. I've been, well, in this business for like, 20 years now. Doing technical sales consultants type of role, a bit of everything. Good morning, Mark. Good to see you. Tell us a bit about yourself. So I know you work for Clifton Surveys. You actually founded the business. How long ago was that? Tell me a bit about that.
So Clifton Surveys was started nearly 10 years ago. It started as just myself and my business partner Lee in a small flat just up the road from here, just the two of us. And over the past 9.5 years, we've grown. We now have a couple of offices in Clifton. We're about 15 strong as a company. And as of about 5 years, we started using a lot of your Trimble products.
Okay. So I appreciate that you are with Trimble for a number of years. I'm assuming you've used other brands in the past?
Yeah, mentioning no names. When we started out for the first 5 years, we were fairly committed to one very well-known brand.
Mm-hmm.
I was discussing with your colleague earlier that we've been working in the industry for some time. Myself, I've actually been in the industry for 25 years. I started surveying a week after my 16th birthday, officially.
Wow.
And yeah, I always felt that the Trimbles, they felt like quite a complicated piece of equipment to me at the time. So we always stuck with this other brand. And now as we've grown and progressed and, thanks to you guys, we've been introduced to Trimble, I actually feel like the things have shifted a little bit. I think Trimble's emphasis on quality and ease of use has surpassed the rival we're currently using, and that is why we've moved a lot now to Trimble. I mean, as you know, we have several scanners, total station and GPS that are now all Trimble, and we're phasing out the previous equipment.
Okay. Well, so clearly today we're going to discuss a bit about more the scanning technology, because I believe, because we spoke a few times in the past, scanning is becoming more and more the core of your business. And I know you're using a lot of our X7 scanners, but I also now have experience with the X9 and the SX12. Can you tell us a bit about what you like, about the workflow, about the X7, about everything that supports it, and how on that?
Well, for us, the X7 was glorious timing. We've been laser scanning measured building surveys now for 5 or 6 years, and as most people know, it's changed the industry as a whole. Everything's so much easier and faster. So we got to thinking that it's about time we started trying to develop using the same technology for a topographical survey. So we started off with the TX8.
Yeah.
And it worked fantastically, but we felt that as using any sort of scan data, sometimes what can seem quite clear and obvious on site when you get back to the office couldn't be, and there was a real sort of like glitch in the system we couldn't iron out.
A gap.
A gap, exactly. And then you guys introduced the X7 and the precision point. And that is why we then invested heavily in the X7s and stuff like that, because it allows us to have all the speed and accuracy of laser scanning, but also for those precise points that may be difficult, obviously they get logged independently, and also using the annotations even just to highlight things that might be clear but things that get missed, manhole covers, that sort of thing. Being able to have the cloud data with those annotations on it, it means we have all the accuracy, all of the precision, and without missing any data, because it's logged on site as well as checked in the office.
So measuring precision points and adding annotations, it's almost that you're describing a total station workflow, because you're taking discrete points and adding something to it, like almost like a code. Is that how you would?
Exactly, yeah. I mean, it has the ability to have all the pace to position itself using the cloud-to-cloud algorithm. Which is obviously dead handy. But like I said, you have the opportunity to take very precise points, whether that be on boundaries or even something like slab edging or something like that can sometimes be difficult to see. I know that from experience using traditional methods and using the pole, quite often you would be able to feel and find the edge of things. Now obviously laser scanning doesn't allow for that, but what we can do is we will find those edges and take those precise points, so we still get all the accuracy. But as I say, it means that You know, you can also have less experienced people operating that software. It's much easier to move a scanner around and use cloud to cloud than it is to train someone to put a full traverse loop in, for example. Obviously, we still use traditional total stations as part of our QA and stuff like that. But yeah, we found the laser scanning incredibly useful, and we have, over the last 3 years, really sort of refined those workflows, and the X7's been a big part of that.
Yeah, I think we as a company, Corec, and we as working with a distributor, especially in the UK, we're seeing this shifting trend that more and more companies like yours are doing more measure building surveys using laser scanning technology, which has been like the standard for almost 15, 20 years. But more and more people are using it for topo surveys, because it's difficult to recruit in this space and it's difficult to teach people how to use total stations. A scanner gives them the flexibility of having a very short learning curve to teach people how to scan, and then it becomes the subject matter of having something with a bit more expertise in the office to bring everything together and to derive point clouds out of it. I know you've been doing the X9. I think it's actually one of the things that Trimble came to realize, that because people are using scanners more and more for topo surveys, the X7 range wasn't quite good enough, and the noise could use a bit of improvement, which is why they've released the X9. Do you think that was a good idea? Do you think there's a place in the market to have both of them?
I think so, absolutely. You know, again, as you know from knowing me, I'm quite into the technology on a personal level as well as through business. And you know, you've had many phone calls with ideas from me for things I'd like to see improved, and the X9 has addressed a lot of those issues. Obviously, the longer range is incredibly useful, not just for collecting things far away, but you know, if you're using it for topo data, quite often those nice flat edges in buildings that cloud to cloud really likes, well, they might be further away. It's not like you're going through a building with lots of walls. So having that extra range to really assist that cloud to cloud would really help. And then obviously the improved imagery. I know that they're sort of bringing similar technology to the X7 as well, but I do think from what personal usage, that imagery is quite important to us. You know, it's obviously you have the grayscale imagery and the actual physical color images, and from a QA perspective, so another thing with the laser scan, it allows us to do that field checking from the office a little bit more, because it gives us the full walkthrough of any site as well. So imagery I think is really important, and obviously it's got the faster laser as well, which is always very helpful. Although I must say that for the measured building, using it in my own experience, the 1 minute 10 second on the X7, quite often I find myself not waiting, but rather the scanner waiting for me, because I find in a measured building survey, by the time you are planning your next move, pinning open doors, pulling back curtains to make sure you've got window reveals, these sort of things, the 1 minute 10 seconds is gone in a heartbeat. So I like the fact that in the X9 they've, rather than just made everything super fast, they've actually improved the quality of that scan data.
It's like a couple of things that from feedback, and I don't think we talk about this enough. Have you ever had to bring external control to make sure the data is leveled on the X7 or X9? Because this is one of the things that Trimble made a point of making sure the data is as accurate, leveled, and checked before leaving the site. You can go to the office and do additional checks or what have you, but make sure you have a complete field-based solution that the customers can trust. But you still have the option to going back to the office. But one of the things that was paramount for us is to basically kind of like forego the use of a total station to bring external control as you were moving over a building to make sure the data was leveled. Have you ever need to do that with the X7 or X9?
Well, the X7 does continually impress us. I mean, we have always been extremely hot on quality of work, and when we first used laser scanning as a whole, we would still put in full traverse loops and detail a full footprint traditionally. And then after almost a year of not a single mistake, we then started to have a bit more faith. One thing we do on larger projects, we worked on a very interesting project in Swindon recently, and it was a ginormous building. It was actually in a James Bond film. I might give it away which building it is now.
Okay.
But we established a full control loop, traditionally with a total station all the way around. And then when we use the X7, we would scan from a control point to a control point, and that distance would maybe 100 to 150 meters. And the accuracy was unbelievable. I mean, our control loop was absolutely brilliant disclosure, so we knew that was brilliant. And when we were scanning and cloud scanning from one control point to another, the errors were within 5 mil every time.
So basically, you were using the loop as a check, not to control the scan data. You're using it to basically double check the loops on the X7.
Well, it's about controlling errors for us. You know, using a laser scanner to scan around a building, you may take 100 scans. Now, if there's a small error in 100 scans, it's very hard to find. So what we do is quite often on a bigger site, we will use a traditional methods to put that control in, and then we use the scan data over a much shorter range. Something we did on this project, because we were using the scan data for topographical survey, is we kept each project separate. So from each control station A to B, that would be a separate one where we've done link scans, nice long scans between the stations, and then we had all our topographical work. But what you don't want when you're also doing the measure building survey is, 500 topographical scans. So what we were doing is those control scans, we took them out, and then once they were all positioned, we positioned the TZFs, took them out and put them into a new project. So that separate project had this perfectly controlled loop of scans all the way around, which we then started to bring our internal data into and cloud that internal data. And of course that meant that all the additional external scans weren't in that Scan Explorer. And we had a perfectly controlled building. And that's our workflow on that one.
Proper surveying technique, double check, always. Surveying is the art of double checking everything.
It is.
Speaking of, the X series, they have this feature that sometimes the market thinks it's a bit of a gimmick or not necessary, where, if I may, so here in the bottom, we made it so that it includes a device that we call collimator, miniaturize it, so that the scanner, every time it feels that it's required to do so, it self-calibrates. And usually the pitch is that through self-calibration, you don't have to send the kit back to the factory to do a yearly calibration. You don't suffer for the downtime for that. You don't have to wire a scanner. Lots of some calibration, which is all true. But from the accuracy statement, as a surveyor, I like to know that the kit is always checking itself, because that's surveying. I'm always checking myself, and if I'm not okay, I will make the necessary corrections through the measurement of the pressure and the temperature to include on the range corrections. Make sure that every survey that it does, it's always correct, which to me as a surveyor kind of almost like has the next level of importance as to the early calibration thing, because let's face it, you send it to calibration, then essentially the very next day it's out of date, realistically. Realistically. Whereas with the X series, it's always the date, because it does it every time. Do you agree with that? Because obviously you run a business, you have appreciation for the surveying techniques and the accuracies. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Any comments?
I absolutely agree on 2 points actually. One, the calibration, as you mentioned, it's very important to keep your kit fully calibrated, but you send off calibration and the next day it's been rolling around in the boot of someone's car or damaged in some way. Well, what does that calibration certificate count for? Not a lot. But what's important to me as a surveyor, and especially as a business owner, is being able to have faith in that equipment. It's as I discussed earlier when we were putting control in, the day that control doesn't match the scan data and you start to lose faith, well, that makes life very difficult. We've had something recently in our underground utilities and using a piece of equipment there, and through no real fault of his own, but there was a few small errors, and as a business owner I stopped having faith, and we've actually, when we didn't really need to, it was fully calibrated, it was all a new nice bit of kit, but because it just gave me that little bit of lack of faith and I stopped trusting it, and we've had to invest in now a new piece of equipment. just to give me that faith back, because it's so important as a surveyor to know and trust that your quit's, performing as it should.
Okay, well, that's good. So how's it, because you've been using now Trimble now for a few years and obviously working with Corec, how has that experience been in terms of interacting with, well, the Corec brand
Yes.
as it were?
Well, it's been very good. We, again, coming from one of your rivals, it's been light and day. So not only the equipment, but the support you guys at Corec have given us. I know me and you have spent many hours on the phone discussing various...
It's all the fun.
Yes, yes, exactly. And I think it's something really important. It's something that, we pride ourselves on at Clifton Surveys as well, to be able to pick up the phone and talk to someone and be able to, ask these questions without judgment and things like that. It's so important. It's, sometimes you don't want to just get through to a helpline. Like me and you, we have a very open discussion about a multiple of things. So we go back to things we've already discussed. If I'm talking to just a helpline, they're not going to have that previous, not going to know me or understand my industry. So for us, it's been a very positive experience dealing with you guys.
Well, good. Thank you. Thanks for raising the point of the precision point, which is actually unique to the X7 and X9. For the audience, the precision point translates into a high-powered laser beam, which you can make visible, and that basically helps customers to do a precision point from the laser scanner as if it was a turtle station. So you can use that to georeference the point cloud, but Mark actually uses it to complement the laser scanner data. Can you give us an example, a real example?
Yeah, so we use it, as you say, in both ways. We use it to georeference our data, although for a lot of what we do, we often post-process that back in the office using RealWorks. So that would be either referencing to control nails established with a turtle station, or sometimes on smaller projects, just some control nails that we've put in with our GPS, just to georeference the whole project. But using it for our topo survey, we find it really useful. As I discussed earlier, sometimes what seems clear on site isn't so clear when you're back in the office. Yeah. So we've started to utilize it on occasions like here when you have a surface change. Yeah. Now, when you're here physically on site in this lovely day lit, you can clearly see the edge. But sometimes if you don't know the site and you're trying to do this project, it's not clear. So being able to put those precise points on the ground and making them visible within RealWorks takes any ambiguity out for the surveyor who's extracting that data. Yeah. And I'll reference the area down there where the grass is growing over. I always believe that in surveying you should always do everything to the best of your ability. So we'd always make the effort to find the true edge of a path. So again, looking in cloud data, that's not always obvious, but what we're able to do is do a scan, maybe clear the glass back to the true edge and take those precise points using the precision point feature. Yeah. And another thing that we use it for, and it's quite useful, is you're able to take those precision points and make them feature set points. So on occasion, you might find that you've done a scan, and as the scan's going, a car's parked in the way, but there happened to be a road gully. Well, that road gully may not even be in your scan data, but you can still then position it after the point and then have that data in RealWorks and extract that as a feature set. So it saves you potentially doing another whole 4-minute scan, and you still get that perfectly precise data.
Because sometimes you don't need a million points where you just need the one.
Exactly. We got away with one for a long time, so we want to do us now. Yeah. Yeah, so we use it quite a lot for that.
Just the best of both worlds.
Exactly, and that is why the X7 and the X9, I said when we've been adapting things to the topo survey, having that feature has been of high value for us.
Cool. What sort of things would you recommend to improve, and would you recommend this to your colleagues, the X series?
I'd certainly recommend them to colleagues, not necessarily rivals, because I think it's given us quite a good advantage in the market, especially as far as the topographical survey is concerned.
Fair enough.
One thing that Corec and Trimble have done very well is they do often listen to us. I mean, again, I'm always full of ideas. Yeah. So, we actually once had a chat with one of the guys quite high up at Trimble via a Zoom call. They actually did listen to some of my thoughts. The X9's obviously addressed quite a lot of issues we had. I think moving forward is now the hardware so good, a few software tweaks, making the annotations visible in your extracted Scan Explorer.
Yeah.
It's very useful. Yeah, we always try to, I'm a great believer that if you're the surveyor on site, it's best that you're drawing it in the office, but real world situations is not always possible. So having the ability to have your Scan Explorer and be drawing and see what notes they've taken on site would be very valuable.
For the sake of the audience, Scan Explorer is a deliverable that you get from Wheelworks, but basically it's a self-contained point cloud, which is free to share with your customers. It doesn't require any software to be installed. You just run it, you get the point cloud, you can extract feature sets, you can extract the point from it. And yeah, I agree. It would be nice to have the annotations and the precision points that you measure from there included in the Export to Scan Explorer, so that if someone is drafting from that data, that's additional information that you can rely on, and again, just removes the ambiguity. One less question to ask in the office just makes people be more productive. Just easier.
Absolutely.
It's just easier and simpler.
Yeah.
All around. I agree. And you're quite right. It's part of our job, my personally, but correct, to engage with whoever we need to have engage in Trimble and have a conversation, explain, look guys, it'd be good for the UK market if we could do this for this and that reason, and in return, well, we'll promise that we're going to try and sell a few more of these for you. And it seems to be working. Okay.
Yeah, I think as a business, we spoke a lot about quality,
Yeah.
but obviously it's still a business and efficiency is an important part
Yeah,
of
yeah.
that. So for as a prime example, when you're scanning through a building, quite often that doesn't need to be a full color scan, and that will save you a minute per scan, which is great. But sometimes a floor surface or that may not always be so clear in a black and white scan. So being able to, whilst drawing, have those little notes, floor surfaces and things like that would be of great value.
Good. Well, thank you for that.